I'm 17 years old. Summer of 2007. For whatever inane reason, I've spent the last 2 months planning a cross-country driving trip for myself and my friends. It wasn't my idea. My girlfriend thought it up, and our mutual friend threw it all together, offered to drive, and made sure all of the pieces fit. I just pretended I was helping. I knew when to fight my battles, and these weren't wars I could win. That's how planning as a couple works anyways. In a relationship, one of the two oftentimes ends up planning everything, and the other has learned not to interfere. So, I wasn't interfering, but I was part of the process. Cross-country trip. California to Florida. See the sights along the way, stay at interesting places, get our fill of road food and such. A bonding experience, you know? Just me, my girlfriend, our mutual best friend, and a couple others. Plus, it was a nice change doing stuff for once. We were all rather nerdy. Anime, video games, Japanese food. That was us. We were trying to do something normal for once, pretending we weren't the usual group of weebs. We weren't, okay? Just let me imagine that. We were a ragtag group for sure, but I assure you we weren't whales or fedora wearers that only talked about anime and vidya all day. We were simply good friends that had some rather nerdy common ground, and it was easiest to connect there. As such, we had varied tastes and we got along beautifully well together. But I forgot to mention, if you didn't realize already, all my friends were female. It's my old best friend's fault. She was a girl, and then she introduced me to girls, and all of a sudden, I was friend-zoned by everyone. Tasked with being that harmless but ever-useful male influence to the group of them. Then, of course, sleepover incident number 1-6-7456-3 occurred, and through rumors and tall tale of heroics, I became a popular kid in high school. Except, that's bullshit. The only stories that made it out were the ones that painted me in an awful light. I was still a nerdy white kid, and I wasn't actually that much of a social butterfly. But I hoped to change that, one day, and I was excited for this trip. Myself and 6 friends to do something that involved social interaction for once. It felt almost normal. Carefully through the process of artificial selection, we'd chosen the proper group of perfect, compatible people to go on a trip with. Except, not really. As is the case with everything, it was an assortment of friends. A mixed couple good friends, a few of those group friends, those runts that stick with the pack because a couple of people like them, even if you and them don't get along too well. They were invited too. Because we had room and because our logistical expert put it would be more fun. Planning-wise, the trip was fully mapped out. Routes, hotels, bed and breakfasts, a couple of odd places to visit. It was down in the books. Well, it was in a little brown binder along with maps and everything, but you get what I mean. And our mutual friend, the planner, was also our accountant, with everything money-related covered. We had the funds to do it. Parents offered to foot the bill. Was patriotic of them. We applauded kindness with many thanks. Friends and I had dredges of middle-class American households, still holding on after glorious post-2000 age of riches. The better-off ones donated tidy sums of cash, enough for rooms and meager potato feasts along the way. Sad as it sounds, 2007 was start of an end for American middle class. Not single family of friends I knew is well off anymore. Nobody really sure what happened. We blamed the government. Maybe should have beat the phone harder. Such is life in capitalist America. Far as I could tell, I wasn't needed here at this final meeting between advocate and planning mastermind. It was day 0. The day before we were all to meet up, pack into a car and go. Probably as ready as we could be. But you know, girls, they gotta make sure. 5 times. So I offered to get drinks, took orders and left the house. I didn't have a car, so I walked. left me time to think about lots of things, mostly about how awesome the next week should be. Hit up the neighborhood market, bagged up the loot, and headed back. Rattled the front door of my house, because I seemed to be completely incapable of using house keys in any reasonable manner, and stepped inside. I found the two girls sitting across from one another, both staring intently at a piece of paper, as if the harder they looked, the better chance of finding a flaw in the plans came out. I noted they looked silly. Out loud, of course, along with a, "We're as ready as we're ever gonna be. We're good to take a break." I'm trying to not sound exasperated. They really had been spending way too much time planning this. Months of on-off visits between houses, sometimes without me even there. More ideas, papers, and plans each and every time, with maps crisscrossed with tape and strings. I'll be honest, I was glad I didn't have to do most of the work. Day 0. My girlfriend looks up with a startled expression, mentions something about needing to get something from her house. It's a quick moment of her getting up, and seconds later, being out the door. Her long, black hair giving an exaggerated swish as she leaves. If I didn't know any better, I would say she was embarrassed. But it's probably just stress from planning this. She didn't even give me a "goodbye, love," like usual. The pretend British accent is cute, don't judge. Which leaves me looking into the deep, amber brown eyes of the girl sitting at the table planning our trip. The mastermind. An awful situation to be in, because I realize she's undone the top couple buttons of her shirt, just for me. Great. Any other male would jump her bones quicker than a conspiracy theorist from X. She was rather attractive. Long, straight, brown hair, brilliant, mischievous smile. C breasts, skinny, but that curvy kind of good weight skinny. She was brilliant, too, great at everything she did and exceptionally helpful, even in the most death-defying situations. She's saved my ass multiple times. Problem 1 was that I don't even browse X or believe in skeletons. Problem 2 is I was in a relationship with a girl who just left the house, and our relationship was in a great place, so I didn't want to fuck it up. Except, problem 3 is that it wasn't. Our mastermind nearly tiptoes across the room and peeks out of the blinds, confirming that she wouldn't be interrupted. I wasn't going to get out of this easily. Then turns to me and flashes her mischievous smile again, the light from outside glinting off her glasses. This, indeed, my friends, was one of our previous heroines, the forever a bro Glasses. She, excluding my partner, was my best friend in the entire world. Always there for me, always helping me out of trouble and smoothing over the chaos I inadvertently managed to cause. Even for just hanging out, or playing games or vidya, she was an absolute blast to have around. Unless we're playing something competitive, then she has this annoying ability to always win no matter what. Except for Scrabble, nobody really knows why. It's like one of those lesser-known superpowers. Personally, I still hope one day I'll be able to phase through spiderwebs. Anyways, the rumors even say her kiss can bring people back to life, a talent given to her by the Egyptian goddess Isis herself. But those are just rumors. Glasses was my best bro, in all aspects but one. Over the last year, and increasingly more over this month of trip planning, every time we were alone together, or she had a moment of spare to tease me, she would do just that. Like right now, where I quickly found myself backed up against a wall, with her eyes staring into mine and quite a large amount of her ample cleavage visible. It was a game, a contest that she played with me with unspoken rules. How far can I seduce him today? I was tired of it. I wanted her to stop playing games with me. She moved closer, her hands placed on the wall to either side. I wasn't going to cheat. I kept telling myself that. She licks her lips. Smooth, luscious, full, kissable. I had decided she was too great of a friend to really be doing this out of jealousy or meanness, the same way the other girls so often did. How every female friend of your girlfriend will always instantly decide it's time to seduce you the moment they learn you're together, out of meanness or in an attempt to prove that you're really unfaithful, or just a sadistic pleasure in conquering that which isn't yours. I trusted Glasses too much for her to be doing this out of a sadistic streak, so I just kept telling myself that she was trying to push me closer to the girl I loved. One of her master plans I just didn't see all the strings of. But it wasn't working. My real relationship was on a rocky bluff in stormy weather, and as Glasses pressed her chest up against mine and tried to connect our lips, I really didn't want to stop her. But I did. I shove her off. She stumbles back a couple of feet, but holds my arm the entire way. I get yanked off balance. She had been getting rather forceful recently. I can't pretend to know what she was thinking or why she was doing this anymore. I watch the world spin, the hallway do a turn as I lose my footing. Maybe she knows that my relationship has been rocky for the last year, that something is wrong and she's trying to pull me out of it. That glorious moment of falling, that glorious realization that it's probably going to hurt as you tense up. I had the sneaking suspicion that my partner was cheating on me, and maybe Glasses knew the truth, trying to seduce me and make me cheat, pull me out of the relationship in the way that will break my heart the least. I hit the floor back first, head rebounding off of the soft wooden planks. With a resounding thud, I'm brought back to the sensation of my head really hurting. That's gonna leave a bump, but you can see how even though she's trying to break up my relationship, seduce me, and has me toppled to the floor like a sack of wet bricks, she's still my best bro. She carefully sits across me, straddling my legs and lap. I'm relatively aroused, and she knows, but that's not the first expression she makes. She gives me a worried smile instead, asks softly but intently, "I'm sorry, are you all right?" I manage to jumble out "jerk" as a response, but her smile returns fully and takes on a cheerful ambience, yet her eyes take on a tone of serious, dark. "You should have just let me kiss you." I respond abruptly, "I'm loyal." And I change the topic. "What happened to that boy you were trying to date last week?" Her eyes roll, and her voice takes on that sing-song tone of explaining, starting with the oh-so-often-heard beginning words of, "Oh, you know." She took her time listing the reasons, bouncing every so often to remind me which pieces of her body are contacting mine and where. I was attempting to ignore her and staring upwards, enjoying the rather high ceilings of the house and the cobwebs that adorned the hard-to-reach corners, until she ended her list of things with a couple of sentences involving me. "And he wasn't very fun to play games with. Not like you. You give the best reactions." She wiggles when she says this. I would love to pretend she's oblivious to the torment she's causing me, but she knows full well. Her upper body leans forward, hair draping down around her and framing her face and mine. "So what about that kiss? It'll be our secret." I watch the shadows play across her lips from the strands of her hair. Tempting, but no. I use the only weapon I have left, the only one that's been keeping her at bay. Guilt. "I've told you, I love her." She breaks eye contact. I've got her now to twist the knife. I wouldn't ever fool around behind her back. I know how much that would hurt her. Her head's turned away. She's staring off into the distance, her smile and optimism gone. It's not actually that much of a compromising position, but the rattling at the front door reminds us that the girl we're discussing has probably returned. So Glasses gets up before the door opens, and extends her hand to help me up before the girl outside gets to the second lock. I don't take it. Thus, my partner enters the hallway to find me on the floor, and Glasses standing above, hands on hips. "What did you do to him?" Explanations were in order. Glasses drops her hand and makes up an excuse about me slipping on a wet spot from where the bag of cold drinks was sitting. I chime in that I was just admiring the ceiling, which brings my girlfriend to stand towering beside me and look up as well. "Oh, looks like you need to clean up there." Indeed. I mumble in agreement, and the girl who I'm not currently that mad at extends her hand to help me up. Then, with a twirl, she's leading me off and up the stairs with a bag in her hand. Come on, I have to show you something. I stick my tongue out at glasses as we go by. She just smiles and waves. Then we're up the stairs, creaking all the way. Into my room, door closes behind us. Her jet black hair swishes as she rushes off to my bed and leaves me standing at the door. Until recently, she'd had it rather short, but I was enjoying it and growing it out for the summer. I get to ravish her with my eyes as she dumps something out on the bed. Jet black hair down to mid-shoulder, petite body frame with a rather modest bust size. Not to mention a rather cute, but small, pair of buttocks swishing back and forth as she fiddled with whatever was on the bed. She wasn't a curvy supermodel, but that's not really a big deal. She was clever, could hold an intelligent conversation about anything we wanted to talk about, enjoyed most of my hobbies, didn't complain about the ones she didn't like, and I adored spending time with her. But the most important part was that she adored spending time with me. She was my best friend in the entire world, and I couldn't imagine it any other way. Fiddling over, cases and containers opened, she turns around to face me. She's holding 4 white, rounded containers with mini discs visible. Ah, glorious Sony Universal Media discs, the fancy throwback to the cassette age in CD form. Hint, those were the weird discs that worked in the PSP. She's holding 4 of the same kind. Untold legends, with some fancy text sprawled beneath. A questioning, did I do good? Obviously on her mind, and I'm staring into my favorite pair of eyes, her beautiful, emerald green eyes. Indeed, as you've already guessed, this was the Valkyrie princess of our last story, Raven. Indeed, as you've already guessed, this was the Valkyrie princess of our last story, Raven. Her jet black hair, the original inspiration for her storied nickname. She was my best friend. She had been for nearly more than half my life, which is quite an impressive feat when you think about it, not to mention the love of my life for 2 of those. I could go on and on about how wonderful she was and break 1,000 cliches, spend paragraph after paragraph outlining exactly how much she meant to me. But I won't, because you either know or you don't care, and I'll just sum it up with one sentence. She was the reason I'm around to tell you this story, in more ways than one. Her eyes were still staring into mine, and she was holding out the games, expecting an answer. So I nodded, and gave her a big smile. It was a 4-player game. Dungeon crawler. We had been trying to solve the last problem of what to do in the car for weeks. Road trips are a tad boring, you know. At least, we thought they would be, from our experience. Her eyes light up like twinkling stars in a smile. She always reminded me of the stars. If she was an Egyptian goddess, too, I would say she was Nut, with her wings spread across the night sky. But, she notes, that the vidya is only for when we've bored ourselves to tears of actually trying verbal communication. Plus, the bag contains an assortment of movies and TV shows, mostly anime really, and that we could watch along the way on our spare laptop. Backup entertainment systems confirmed. Talking to one another confirmed. I take a moment to place the discs safely back into the cases and then the bag. I place the bag on the floor, and I tackle Raven to the bed in a hug. As her head hits the sheets, my lips touch hers. We had long passed the frantic, soul-sucking kissing stage. It was a soft, sweet touch of lips, an excuse for contact, a soothing and warm comfort shared between us during the good times. I kissed her because she made me happy, reminded me of the light and the dark in a painting. But she broke it off and rolled away. She'd been so distant lately. I'd been trying to get her to tell me why, but she wouldn't say. Guilt? A secret she couldn't tell? A lie she'd been keeping all this time? Whatever it was weighing on me, and she wouldn't tell. It just reminded me that you gotta have sadness once in a while so you know when the good times come. She sat up, picked up her bag, and started to leave the room. She was forcing distance between us, more and more every week. I was waiting on those good times now. I stop her at the door with a single word. Wait. She pauses. Hand on the doorknob, she doesn't even turn to look at me. I would ask her a question, but it's rather a statement. I'm spending the night at your place. I let the end drift off. It ends as a question overall. She makes an excuse, something about us having an early day tomorrow and needing to get everything together. Excuses, excuses. It's all I keep getting from her. We were fully packed. We had everything covered. I wasn't having any of it. It's gonna be the last time we can be alone, together, for a while. She turns her head. I see a glint of a cute little half smile, and her mouth moves, ruining it, but making it oh so much better. Okay. And she leaves. I flop down on the bed again. She'd been busy for 2 weeks now. I guess it's a rather common thing when a relationship isn't going too well. Excuses to not spend time with one another. Things to do that don't involve your partner. But she still agreed. There was hope yet. Like I said, I knew she was hiding something. I knew she was guilty about something, and I knew she wouldn't tell me. You can ask why I wasn't questioning her, but I did for a month. Asking people constantly what they're hiding from you doesn't work very well. Ever. They'll just get angry at you. Like she did. Our worst fight, she stopped talking to me for a week. Sure, it hurt to imagine she was seeing someone else, but being ignored was 100 times worse. It's quite a low tactic, a disgustingly vile and nefarious twist of the gut to stop talking completely to someone. You don't even need to tear them apart. They'll do it themselves. Every fault, every mistake they think they've made, it'll all come out. At least me. I never took being ignored very well. I got rather depressed and made 1,000 rather stupid decisions that week. Left far too many messages for her online, sent apologetic, nasty, and just plain pleading emails. It's a tough thing, getting into a fight with a romantic partner and a best friend at the same time. They're usually the one you complain to about things like that, so you end up complaining to them about them, or bottling it up inside and resenting yourself. This was part of the reason I hoped the trip would turn out well, reinforce our relationship maybe. My trip down painful memory lane is interrupted by a ding from my pocket, along with a vibration. Oh god, what the fuck is that? Fucking pocket is going to explode, holy shit. Oh my god, JC, a bomb! I jump half a foot off the bed and sit up. I reach into my pocket, grab a square plastic box and pull it out. False alarm. It's just a cell phone. Just got mine this year. Still forget it did things other than ring. I know, as crazy as it sounds, cell phones were new things. I get the pleasure of reading a text message, a rare occurrence in those days. We only had one friend that texted us, the techie of our group. Pretty sure the darn thing cost me like 5 cents on my bill. A girl of few words, it read like a plea for help from Leia herself. Brother doesn't want to let me go. Come? Ship under attack. Can't get to Alderaan. Only hope. Gotcha. She doesn't live walking distance close, however, so instead of taking my planned midday nap, I quickly return downstairs looking for our resident girl with a car. I find her sipping her drink and looking over her domain of crossed red strings on a map of the country. I feel kinda bad for interrupting her tranquil contemplation, but I point out that I've just received a text, like it's some kind of major announcement or something. Glasses looks up at me, surprised. It is a major announcement, but she knows exactly who I'm talking about because she responds with one word. Brother? It's a question. I nod. Like I said, there was only one girl that texted us. The rest of us used calls, or didn't have phones. We knew this might be a problem. It doesn't take us but a moment to hop into her car. It was a Chevy Suburban, 1999 or something. The same thing we were going to use for the trip. Then, maybe 10 minutes tops, we get to our damsel in distress. We knock on the door and are greeted by a man in the coolest creamy coffee skin tone. Not really black, like a mixture of chocolate and raspberries. A light brown with a reddish tint underneath. It was her father. They had moved here from South America about a year ago. We're also greeted by the sounds of banging and yelling off in the corner of the house. The dad doesn't seem fazed at all, like it's a normal occurrence. He just points us towards the back of the house and we rush off. We find a well-lit hallway. Another male, about 19 years old. He's tall and handsome, but that didn't matter to me. He's banging on a door that's absolutely plastered in bumper stickers, mottos, logos, and posters. It never ceases to impress me which new stickers she'd placed since the last time I'd been to her house, but I don't get to admire them for long. Her brother has turned to face me, a look of pure rage upon his face. "You're the guy who's been fucking around with my sister?" "What?" "It's you she's spending so much time with." I don't have time to think or respond. He comes at me with a fist. I flinch, the only white superpower, and duck out of the way. He misses me by a couple of inches, but I feel the wind pass by my cheek, actually terrified of this dark-skinned guy who's twice my size beating me to a bloody pulp. The other white superpower, but before his fist stops moving, I hear a resounding crack. I look up and to my left. Glasses connected her fist with his jaw. He was putting his entire body weight into that punch, so she didn't even have to hit him with all of her strength. The poor sod just kind of flops over into the floor, out cold. Glasses left waving her hand around with her mouth wide open in what seems to be a really honest mask of pain. You know that, "Fuck, I didn't think punching people actually hurts as much as it does," kind of face. That sounds like a rather surprising turn of events, but this wasn't the first time. Last time, he accused Glasses of being some kind of lesbian lover, and it took 3 girls to pin him down long enough to extract the VIP to the waiting car and evac his sister out. I'm pretty impressed with the knockout punch. I guess she had enough of his shit. Glasses catches me staring with my mouth open, and she grins. I felt like destroying something beautiful. An actual word-for-word quote from the girl herself. I couldn't help but smile. She also mentioned some things about him being an overprotective asshole, but those weren't nearly as good quotes. We end up knocking on the door, barely any wood left showing. "He's out cold. You're safe," were the words I yelled through the door. I was trying to pretend I was the badass who took him out, but the door opens a smidge and a pair of hazel eyes peek out of the darkness. She caught Glasses, still waving her hand around and making faces, in the sight of her brother's legs on the floor. It's pretty obvious who the true alpha here was. The door opens, and we're ushered in, locked behind us. We enter what I can only imagine was the coolest girls' room in the entire state, at least in my mind. The walls were covered in posters, yes, a couple boy bands, a few musicians, and a small plastered area of cute guys, but the rest of the walls were covered in different types of posters. Blueprints, pictures, and instructions to make different electronics, a couple anime posters poking out from what behind I think was a schematic for a ham radio. There was another chart next to this with something called EME, communication outlined, and pictures of lasers going between the Earth and Moon. Not only the walls, but every horizontal surface of the room was covered in gizmos, gadgets, whirligigs, and different things in alternating states of being taken apart. She had working model planes and helicopters hanging from the ceiling that we'd seen her fly a couple times, and a dismantled toy car, sitting on top of a working remote control race boat on her dresser. The floor was an equal mess of the same thing, plus girl clothes. Then, lastly, she had a computer battle station that consisted of 2 screens she remounted and stuck together with duct tape, and a good portion of the actual components plugged in and sitting on a shelf, not even in a case. The room was an absolute masterpiece of messy tinkering, building, destroying, and rebuilding. And that's not even starting on the gadget girl herself. She was turned away from us, wearing long, baggy cargo pants to cover her shoes, and a black jacket with the hood up. A set of headphones wrapped around her neck, the cord dangling off into a pocket as she quickly packed the rest of her stuff into a duffel bag. I would describe her body, but she always wore baggy clothes. She was skinny, I could tell you that much. She stops and turns. Probably realized she hasn't said a word yet. All that's visible is her face, framed by dark brown bangs with red dyed highlights and the rest of her hair hidden in the hood. She's got an absolutely adorable face. Button nose, hazel eyes, those kind of eyes where it's brown in the center, yellow rings in the middle, and greenish-bluish at the outside. But the best part is her skin color. This girl had the most amazing skin you've ever seen. She had mixed-race parents, Peruvian and another South American country. Dark and very light at the same time. The mixture gave her this creamy coffee with tons of milk skin color, where the light bounced off just right and showered reddish and pink underneath. As a male, the skin-colored screamed, "Please let me see what color you are everywhere else." But she was rather shy, and never wore anything less than long sleeves and pants. And headphones. Always headphones. Tinkering with something, listening to music, always an earbud in one ear. A girl, a few words. This was Gadget. She didn't have to ask the question, it was part of the plan anyways. But she didn't know the plan, so she asked, "Can I stay over with you?" It's directed at me. She's actually more my friend than anyone else. Had a forced partner up in a science class with her, found out she had very few friends after moving, and we connected pretty well. I toted her along a couple times. She got along fine with our other little clique, and she fit in. Funny how people from other countries always fit in with the awkward kids. She was actually rather cool in my eyes. Glasses perks up a response that she can stay with her, but that we should probably get going before the brother wakes up. Bags grabbed. Gadget, myself, and Glasses start heading out. Then I stop us. I remember the most important part. "Grab your PSPs. We're gonna need them." She pauses, then realizes what I'm asking and runs over to a shelf and starts rummaging around. Pulls out both her and her brother's handhelds and shoves them in a bag, along with a charger and an extra battery. Good to go. We pile into the hallway to find the brother on the ground, rubbing his chin. We're out of time. Take evasive action. Port side maneuvering. Thrusters firing. We dodge into the living room. Gadget says in a hurried goodbye and what I can only assume was, "I love you," out of her native tongue to her dad. He didn't seem worried at all that Glasses had just punched his son out. Instead, he asks who served him and what he had coming. We all point at Glasses. He smiles and says his son deserved it. He also seems somewhat surprised a girl dealt the finishing blow. We hear stirring and stomping from the hallway. Out of time. We're out the front door in a flash, with her father yelling a rather collected and calm, "I know you'll call." We slam the door and hear a dull thud behind it. Idiot ran into the door. It's a frantic mess to get into the car, but we manage with seconds to spare as he comes barreling down the driveway and we pull out. He manages to hit the hood of the car once before we get out of range. My heart's beating like 1,000,000 miles a minute. Goddamn chase scenes. Gadget doesn't even seem worried. It's like it's just a normal occurrence. She just throws her headphones on, plugs in some music, and sits quietly in the seat next to me on the ride back to my house. But I notice as her face jumps to the, "Oh no, I forgot something" phase. We're not going back, I swear to I forgot, my girl things. Oh, god damn it. Probably we're in the bathroom or something. We're going to need to pick up the riot gear from my house for this. Except, not really. Glasses just mentioned she's got extra at her house. Crisis averted. I'm pretty sure she was bringing backups on the trip. The rest of the car ride is silent. It seems I'm getting dropped off at my house. We arrive, and Gadget leans over and gives me a kiss on the cheek. Thanks. Aww. Mission accomplished. I wave goodbye to Glasses and step out of the car to find Raven standing at the doorstep. She asks where I went, and I point out we had to rescue our steampunk princess for tomorrow. Makes complete sense. She knows what that brother is like, which is hilarious actually. He really was that typical older brother obsessed with his sister kind of guy. He grew up in a different society, I guess, or he had a real sister complex. But he seemed to just be overprotective to the extreme, and we tried our best to work around him. Raven offers me an invitation to dinner at her place, and an elbow. We interlink and march off. Dinner is uneventful. It's yummy, but nothing too interesting to talk about. All of Raven's stepbrothers and sisters dominated the conversation. It's not like we were a new thing. We were at dinner at one another's places often. The big topic was the road trip, however, and 1,000,001 questions were asked, all of which I had to answer. Food, finish, compliments to the chef of the night, the father. I take Raven's hand and lead her away. Her room, and we put on a movie. End up cuddling on the bed. I let her pick. I can't remember what we were watching because honestly, it didn't matter to me at all. That's kind of what happens in relationships. You end up curled up together on a bed watching something the other one wants to watch. It doesn't really matter. You watch it because you enjoy their company. You watch it because they want to watch it. And you watch it because if it's really boring, you just get to roam your hands all over them the entire time, and that's as good as any movie. And that's their own damn fault for picking a boring movie. I make it about an hour. It was interesting at first, and then it seemed like the plot fell apart. The actors weren't trying, and I don't even think Raven cared anymore. So I flipped her over and stole a kiss. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was a forceful statement. A mixture of, "You're mine," and "I've missed this." She understood, and relaxed into it. Over the years, we'd learned kissing tricks from one another. You find out what your partner likes. Fun games you can play. One of them was rather neat. You take your tongues and kinda push against one another in the middle. Not really a tangle as much as a reverse tug-of-war. Loser gets a tongue in their throat. Winner gets to remove a piece of the loser's clothing. She was really trying to beat me though. Tongue like a great shield, blocking my progress at every turn. I bring my hands down to her waist, under her shirt, and I tickle her. I win. Take that. It's fair. She's done it to me before. She loses her pants, pink panties free for the world to see. But for my eyes only. 00 and 7 status. Wrap a blanket around us. I return to spooning her. My hand sneaks to her stomach. She sucks it in, leaving a gap between her hips and her underwear. An invitation. I slide my hand lower. She's still got a messy tangle of jungle down here. But she trims it, pulls out the weed whacker every once in a while, just for me. How romantic, right? We tried clean-shaven a couple of times, her and me both, but her skin is ridiculously sensitive. Whatever we tried, she had the worst razor burn you'd ever see. It was painful for her, and itched all day for me, so we just settled for not tormenting ourselves. I'm pretty sure we could have used, like, baby oil or something, but fuck if I know. I didn't mind. I guess it bothers some guys, but she was perfect in my eyes anyways. It probably also helped that she always smelled amazing everywhere. I slowly finger her for the rest of the movie. It's always rather fun to finger a girl who's trying to pay attention to something else. I gotta watch her squirm and wiggle, her mouth hanging open just a bit the entire time. Soaked a spot right through her bedsheet. Every so often I would pull my fingers up and suck them clean. It was always sweet, flavorful, and delicious. Musky, but a light sugar, and a fruit I never could decide. I always joked with her about it, pretended she was actually made of candy. So I brought my fingers to her lips and made her suck them clean too. She always pretended she hated this, but she licked her lips every time. Or I would lick them for her. I spent the rest of the movie alternating between rubbing, teasing, pinching, and stroking her in all the right places. One hand on her chest and forcing her close, the comforting pressure of her back against my groin. Then the credits start to roll. I have no chance to react, as she's got me pinned down from above, her eyes glaring into mine. I've unleashed the beast. God save the queen. Personally thrown against the headboard, and she's kissing me back, emerald fire cascading across her face. She bites my ear. It surprises me. One of those new tricks I couldn't figure out where she was learning from. And returns to kissing. She wins, multiple times in a row. I lose enough clothing to end up without pants or underwear on. Rather quickly, too. She grinds up against me, slides 2 hands down, and without much effort, has me resting with just the tip inside her, panties pulled to the side. Her hands wrapped around my back, my head pressed into her chest. Then she, the giant tease she was, froze. It was her little way of proving I couldn't resist her, of controlling me. I didn't mind proving her right. I placed my hands on her hips and slowly pressed down. In return, I get a moan, a soft exhale the entire way down. I get to watch as her chest slowly lowers and I find her face on nearly even level with mine. I resume the kissing game. She's taken me to the hilt just like always, unbelievably tight, like she was gripping me as hard as she could. I almost can't concentrate, but I win again and get rid of her shirt. If I crane my neck just right, I can get my tongue to her chest. She had grown here. A to B- bust size. Still rather small, but not completely flat anymore. With just a bit of suckling and a bite or two, I feel a ripple come across her back, and then her entire body. That's a small O for her. I take it as a hint to pick up the pace. I make a joke about her being a quick shot, and she pinches me. And we're giggling. It's just, you really get to know what someone likes when you've been with them for more than a year. I wasn't the awkward virgin I had been years before, but we had our share of awkwardness. Every so often, she would make a funny sound, a squeak or a squeal when I hit something wrong or right, and she had this great one, like the mixture between squeezing a cat and a rubber ducky. It made me laugh every time, but it was good-natured. She would get me back in some way or another. Claws out, I might get a scratch or two. From the rubber ducky side, of course. We used to play around all the time, try new things, and find out what we liked. But we did find out rather quickly that strangling and any kind of violent play was a huge turnoff, mostly for me. I don't want to talk about it. We didn't change positions much, myself against the headboard and her on top. With a little bit of rubbing and squeezing, I pushed her off the diving board, double somersault and a full spin, 10 from every judge. She tensed up. When I got her off, she squeezed me with everything. Her arms, legs, chin on my shoulder, holding me down, and everything inside her squeezed and massaged in tandem with itself. I always made sure to give her little ones first, because when she got off, I came with her. Every time. We lay like that for a while, catching our breath. Eventually, I pulled her off of me, got up and picked out a movie I wanted to watch. Into the DVD player it went. Back to spooning, this time with full penetration involved. We had both gotten off, so it was time for extended physical contact. Even without much movement, the pleasure of just being with someone, knowing that at that moment you and them are connected. Close. It's an amazing sensation, Anons. We were close for most of the movie. I even made us closer in tune with some of the greatest orchestral scores in the action scenes. It was slow, melodic, deep sex. The entire point was to make your partner feel loved, and I did my best to remind her how much she meant to me. She was my best friend after all, and I'd known her long enough that she was the world. Maybe a little bit of it was reminding myself. Sometimes you need to do that. Sometime near the end I sped up again. I got her off a second big time. Stopped counting the littles. I can't remember what happened during the movie, but I whispered sweet everythings into her ear every time. About how she was better than watermelon, or like a panda with a mean face, sandals with pressure points drawn on them, or the smell of a blackboard eraser. Even better than a Sunday morning when you wake up and it's raining. She drifts off to sleep right as I'm telling her I like her more than hard bread. I reach over and turn out the bedside light, and I follow her. I don't wake up first. Neither does Raven. Instead, I'm brought back to the world of the waking by a light shaking on my shoulder. I open my eyes. It's Raven's little stepsister. She's like 10 or 11 or something. She's shaking us awake and telling us we need to wake up or we're gonna be late. Aw, that's adorable. But I groan anyways, mostly because I'm tired. But also because I'm still naked and in bed with her older sister. Not the alarm clock I wanted or was expecting. I blink my eyes a couple of times to grind the sleep out of them. The door to Raven's room is closed. I could swear it was locked, too. Little sister actually capable of walking through walls. Good to know. She's not acting traumatized or asking, "What are you doing?" or anything. It was a rather precarious situation because I wasn't sure if she knew what we were doing. She knew I was over all the time. She knew I spent the night occasionally, but she was a little young. I glance over at the clock. It's only 8:15. We technically have 15 minutes on snooze time left, but the sister won't stop shaking us. "Mr. Bubbles, please get up." I mentally chalk her up for just being innocent and wanting to help, until she starts grabbing the blanket and pulling it off of us. No, it's cold. Don't take it away. This isn't okay. I dig my arms into the folds and try to hold on, but I'm losing the tug of war with an actual little girl. The bottom half of the blanket is rising above our legs and leaving ankles showing. It's really rather cold. What does she want? I tell her to leave us alone and we'll get up in a bit, and she stops tugging and gets all silent. I'm expecting she just realized we were naked because a good portion of our legs are now exposed. I start kicking the blanket back down, trying to cover us up again. I fully expect her to start asking questions about why we weren't wearing clothes or what we were doing. It's okay. I can handle this. I brace for the questions. She opens her mouth. It's rather quiet. I already expected her to ask us what we were doing. Can I see it? So I start explaining. You see, when a boy and a girl... Wait. What? I didn't have a response for that question. It was way too early to deal with ulterior female motives. I'm pretty sure it was always way too early to deal with that one. I was around a ton, sure, and I was nice to Raven's little sis, but I wasn't some loving older brother figure. Like, I didn't even pay attention to her most of the time. I'm pretty sure she was just asking because she was curious, or Freya forbid, jealous, and wanted to know what she was missing out on. I know better than to play this game. There has never been, and never will be a way to play this game and survive. Remember, Anons, no matter how smart you think you are, how clever, suave, lucky, or how fast you think you can run, there's only one answer in this kind of situation that won't end up with your death. And I still haven't figured out what that answer is yet. But I tried. Sorry, it belongs to your sister. The little sis gives a pout. An audible "humph" is heard as she starts tugging on the blanket again. Raven has been awake this entire time, but she doesn't even move. She just growls, "Get your own." Little sis stomps off, mumbling things about how she's gonna have bigger boobs someday and how I'm not that handsome and probably have a small wiener. Then she leaves the door wide open as she leaves. Damn it, now we have to get up. And it's amazing how ego-crushing a 10-year-old can be. I get up. Naked. Risky assessment. Danger of being seen level high. I scurry over to the door, ready to grab clothing at any moment to hide myself from prying eyes. There's dishes clanging in the kitchen. I hear one and just jump out of sight of the door. False alarm. I manage to get the rest of the way unseen. Close and lock it for sure this time. There's a sad realization it's far too late to go back to bed now. I just grab bits and pieces of my clothes and start getting dressed as Raven wakes up. She ends up sitting on the edge of the bed watching me, idly swinging her toes back and forth. I ask her if she slept well. No response. I didn't need a response though, it was just an idle question. I find her underwear, which is halfway across the room for whatever reason, and I hold it out for her to step into. This is the best part. She steps into them, one leg at a time, and I get to run the insides of my hands up her thighs as I slide them upwards. She gives a half purr as I do. Helping girls put on clothes is easily one of my favorite things. Who knows, maybe I'm just weird. Until I get them all the way on. Then her face changes to an uncomfortable one, as the squelching sounds remind me we both need a shower. She comments, annoyed, "Ugh, I'm all wet and sticky." Oh man, brilliant chance here. That's what she said, joke heaven. But I think I can play it smart. Get bonus points while making a joke. I go for a slam dunk. Yeah, but that's why I like you. It ends up coming out as less of a joke and more of a smug asshole side comment. She gives me a funny look. Then a not so funny look. I realize that in my head that probably sounded like a dirty joke, but it just came out weird. I start backpedaling. I'm terrified I've just made a grievous error. Stammer out a response to her glare. I mean, I was going to say that's what she said, but I wanted to compliment. She stops me with 2 words. Shut up. And then she starts laughing. I get half-tackled, and she makes fun of me for being so insecure with the things I say all the time. Points out that if I had just rolled with it, it would have sounded cute and not asshole-ish. Words of wisdom. Still, women can't let my guard down. Communication and thought cut off as we return to dressing. She ends up in jean shorts, striped stockings from the knee down, and a jacket and a hat. It was a mixture of a boyish and girlish at the same time. She was great at that. Then she gets to throwing together whatever else she forgot to pack. I would help, but you learn better. I just choose to sit down on the bed and watch, which was a horrible idea, because the second I put my hand down, I snatch it up and jump to my feet. We've done unspeakable things to the sheets. Leaving them like this would be an embarrassment. I wordlessly pull them off, semi-fold, ball them up, and leave the room. It's another stealth mission. I have to get across the house without anyone noticing. Rather easy, actually. I didn't meet a single soul. I didn't even have to use vanish or deep shadows or any of that. I was praising my luck as I turned and stepped foot into the laundry room, which is when my luck ran out. Raven's mom was idly unloading the washing machine. I freeze. She freezes. She sees me. No fucking way out of this one. I'm holding her daughter's bed sheets. I don't say anything. I'm just staring at her like some kind of awkward forest animal caught in a car's headlights. Mind you, I'm not worried about her finding out. I mean, she knew. There's no way she didn't. And I was on amazingly good terms with her. This was like my second house. After I blew the whistle on her old husband, I was pretty much an honorable son to her. And Raven was like my sister. I bet we spent more time together than most siblings. It's just, we didn't flaunt intimacy with her parents around. I hadn't been caught in this kind of situation before. It felt kind of wrong in that you're screwing your sister and your mom just found out kind of dirty way. 3 words. Embarrassing as fuck. I would have happily melted into a puddle right there and slithered away like Alex Mack if I could. But my GC-161 induced powers frizzle, and I'm brought back to solidity by Raven's mom. She's nonchalantly pointing out that the load just finished and the washer is empty. I just go through the motions of loading it in. I don't say anything. She doesn't even seem the slightest bit disturbed by what happened. I don't understand how. I'm internally melting. But she doesn't bat an eye, and the sheets are properly deposited and the washer is running. I've traumatized myself for life. She's pretending not to be traumatized, but really she is. It's the only logical answer. I'm trying to avoid eye contact, but she manages to latch her eyes onto mine, and I'm internally panicking and screaming. Then, in that motherly type of tone, she speaks first. Thanks for making my daughter happy. On a scale of blushing colors, I go full blondie. She leaves with a smile. My body was not ready for that kind of comment, but I took it with pride. Nothing much interesting happens as we get the suitcases together and leave. Raven goes over heartfelt goodbyes and gets various versions of "have a nice trip" from each of her siblings and parents. I just silently stand there with an embarrassed smile holding the bags. Then we're off, out the door and around the block to my house. Really is only a couple minutes walk. We're in my door and bags are down in the front hall before we even break a sweat. And Raven announces that showers are in order. Yeah, gotta agree with that. I let her go first. I know, taking turns, haha, but we only had about 30 minutes until glasses showed up. Still being in the shower when she got here was not the plan. So I let Raven go first, sat down on the toilet with a towel, and we went over everything. We had packed to make sure we weren't missing anything. Eventually the talk gets around to seating arrangements and she gets out. I throw her the towel and hop in myself, and start going on a big long speech about how we should all be sitting. She gives a couple responses, then I go on about some sappy stuff about how nice it would be to cuddle the entire trip. I finish up and get out of the shower to see what her response is. She's not in the bathroom. I've been ditched. God damn it, Raven. I angrily throw on my clothes, grab another towel, and stomp out to find out where she's gone to. I find her in my room, sitting on my bed with her phone sitting next to her. She actually seems really depressed all of a sudden. It's not really words, it's just context clues. She's looking downwards. Her eyes are stormy and shallow. Drops me out of angry into just worried. I ask what's wrong and hop behind her to forcibly dry her hair. She's really bad at that. I guess that's what you get for having short hair all the time. She tells me she heard her phone ringing and went to go get it. Ends up one of our girls can't go. She's got a date with a hot boy called being grounded for a month. He's kind of a douchebag. I've met his kind before. That controlling kind of boyfriend, doesn't let you go out at night, tries to separate you from all your friends, controls your life, and gets angry if you don't listen. It's a kind of shitty revelation, but we don't know what she did yet. It's a somber 15 minutes of hair drying and brushing before we hear a honk outside. I sadly have nobody in the house to say goodbye to. I did the day before since they would be busy. I say goodbye to an empty house, get our bags, and meet up with Glasses and Gadget at the front door. They help us load the car, clothes in the back, bags of entertainment go to the front of the car. I think I mentioned it was a Suburban already. They're huge, lumbering SUVs with 3 rows of seats, 8 in total, and a pretty big amount of space in the back. We could have seated a harem army, and the space is well used. We have Glasses driving, Gadget sitting shotgun, and 2 seats in the middle, with one folded down for a convenient place for a cooler and snacks when we got them. Plus, it made moving between the rows much easier. Raven and I end up dual-laning mid, her against the window, myself in the middle. Worst seat, but whatever. And then we're off to pick up girl number 4. We arrive at her house at about 9:30. Glasses and Raven get out to do the honors. I don't even risk it. I goddamn know better. I don't want to lose my legs or a couple of fingers. I watch from a distance as a tall and rather lanky woman opens the door with brilliant, fiery red hair. The sister. Or mother, I think. I've never been to her house. I need those fingers, man. The girls vanish inside, and Gadget pipes up from the front seat. You know we're both gonna have to move? Yeah. Fuck. There's a couple ways this could work, but I'm just going to forego the trouble and head to the middle of the back. Let's just say, at a wedding you spend days planning out who sits next to one another to make sure families don't fight. Car trips you do the same thing. There were rules for this kind of thing. Gadget unbuckles and crawls back to join me, taking a window seat. Except it's got this cool shelf thing that she ends up lying against. I get along great with 4 of the girls. Not so well with one of them. And we don't talk about the last one. Unluckily, the last one was standing on her doorstep, bags in hand, and was heading out towards the car and us. She was a fiery redhead, just like the woman in the doorway. Tall, not very curvy, but she had obvious female proportions, even though she tried to hide them behind very tight clothes. Her hair was super short, 2 to 3 inches at most, and an absolute mess of straight and curly all over the place. To make the ensemble fit, she had punk, goth, rocker clothing on in all dark colors, completed with a black tank top that was 3 sizes too small, and smushed her rather well-sized pair of breasts upwards. She took her time getting to the car, and I was trying to avoid eye contact. But they pop back, and I catch her face. She was exceptionally cute. Lovely, light green eyes framed by proud and high cheekbones, complete with a light splattering of dark spots across the bridge of her nose and her upper cheeks, as if an artist flung paint and watched it splatter. This, anons, was Freckles, and she was scowling at me. She, to put it lightly, hated me. I dropped eye contact and hid behind Gadget, her ample jacket providing cover from the dagger fire of angry redhead. Freckles, as the story goes, had a father. She loved him very much. He was the stay-at-home dad. Then, when she was young, 10 or 11, he left, and she never saw him again. So her older brother took up the fatherly role, raised her for a couple years, and he was her best friend. Then he left to go marry someone in a third-world country, and she never heard from him directly, with odd postcards every now and again from places that don't exist anymore. Then she tried dating to fill the male gap in her life, and the first boy she tries decides 2 months in that he's gay, and ends up in a relationship with some guy named Alphonse. To put it simply, on a scale of 1 to hating men, Freckles was full-blown Tumblr. She declared herself a lesbian and did her best to dress like one and insult men wherever she could. Mostly me. She absolutely detested me, and there was no reason for it. I had tried being nice. I had tried being not so nice. I even tried flirting with her, and trust me, that went 1,000 times worse than you can even imagine. But she had a license, and was best buds with everyone else. She was sitting in the front, and I was sitting in the back. At least, until the initial tension went away, if ever. We resituate seats. Raven just sits in the middle because we're gonna get out anyways at the next house, and it's a short ride to troublesome girl number 5. We're discussing plans of action the entire way. It's suggested that Raven and I go talk to the parents since they know us pretty well. Yeah, alright. Car pulls up and we get out. It's a 7-mile trek to the front door, and we're both sweating bullets. Knocking on the door results in an extremely angry man greeting us, but he softens up when he sees us, and formally explains that his daughter is turbo-grounded. We start pleading. That's never once worked in the history of parents, so don't bother. We ask why she's grounded. The father goes into an extremely long tirade about exactly what his daughter was doing. It involved the new pool they had just installed. Last night, she was alone in the house. The lack of swimsuits, a boy, and an illicit substance. Oh. Well, Raven and I exchanged the, yeah, we can't fix this look. It's a little bit of helpless, silent eye communication. The father apologizes and knows we were planning to have a fun, long trip with her, but he goes on a long speech about actions having consequences. He mentions the time I fixed the door to his daughter's room after breaking it, and how at least I was responsible for my actions. I just cough. And note, we have to be going. I don't want to listen to the punishment speeches for things I haven't done recently. And there's no saving this. The girl is grounded and won't be coming. We hang our heads and head back to the car. The car takes the news pretty badly. The girls take it even worse. We're all pretty angry at how stupid the girl in question was. Loud angry. Everyone's bummed, but there's really nothing we can do about it. Fuck then. Time to pick up girl number used to be 6 and is now 5. Moving up in the world she is. We roll up to a rather large house. 3 stories. Picture perfect. White and grand. Her family was doing really well. I guess the business they owned was flourishing, because we were failures with that last house. Everyone piles out of the car to this one. Plus, it's going to be the last chance to stretch our legs before we start the real trip. It's quite a sight, with 5 people standing and laughing at the door trying to shove one another off the doorstep, which was huge, to be the first to greet her. Then the door opens and we pile through and group tackle the cutest girl you've ever seen. She had a picture-perfect look of surprise with her bright blue eyes lighting up as she saw us giggling and rushing her. There was a loud eek, but she was far too late to escape. Glasses, myself, Raven, and Freckles picked this girl up and started carrying her out the door with yelps and squeals along the way. Gadget confirms there's only 2 bags for the pampered princess we're carrying away and waves goodbye to the rather surprised parents as we leave. I yell something along the lines of, "We'll give her back when we're finished," and I hear laughter from the inside. The girl we were carrying was rather light, but had the deliciously pompy curves that made every outfit look perfect. She was wearing a white spaghetti strap shirt and some shorts with sandals, and I got to hold the legs. B-sized breasts, exceptionally attractive sapphire blue eyes, hair tied into bangs with a ponytail. Long, down to the middle of her back, an outstanding yellow blonde. This, indeed, was cuteness prime herself. Blondie. As we carried her to the car, I totally felt her legs up and nobody noticed. Only problem was, this was also the time-traveling assassin from the future sent to prevent the creation of my harem. Her goal was my death, and more recently Raven's too. Always in clever ways that were never completely her fault. As you can guess, she wasn't on very good terms with Raven either. It wasn't Freckles bad, but I wouldn't want to be in a room alone with her for any extended period of time. The car was probably safe, plenty of witnesses after all. We pile her and her things into the car. The official girl seating chart is as follows. Driver, glasses. Shotgun, Freckles. Middle row, Blondie, empty. Back row, Gadget, me, Raven. I'll have to come up with a clever way to write that out as it changes. And we're off on our grand adventure. Except it's not really that grand yet. With Freckles as navigator, we do set off in a general easternly direction. We're gonna be in Los Angeles for ages trying to escape though. Thus, as Glasses navigates the awful traffic, we break into group gossip. Most of it is rather uninteresting. Freckles brings up some complaining about how one of her male teachers isn't giving her fair grades. The other girls agree and say he's a bad teacher. Blondie complains about her boyfriend dumping her before she could even kiss him. The other girls agree and say he's a bad person. Glasses lists all the snacks we have stored in various compartments for later in the trip. The other girls agree and say she's a wonderful person. When I say other girls, I'm included too. I'm one of the pack, synonymous with the gaggle. It's general gossip. Well, until we get the general out of the way. Freckles complains about having to be in the same car on the trip as a boy. Raven changes the subject and distracts Freckles by asking where she shops for her clothes. Raven hates shopping. She's just being a bro. We're all treated to a very informative play-by-play on lesbian fashion. I want to shoot myself, and we're not even 20 minutes in. I managed to survive by wrapping my arm around Raven and tapping SOS out in Morse code on her ribs. I think it tickles because she stifling laughs, and I guess it's keeping her entertained too. I could go on and on about girl talk, but the truth was most of it wasn't bad. Topics ranged from boring, clothes, boys, fashion, makeup, school, to rather interesting. Video games, anime, only the non-girly ones are entertaining. Blondie outlined some good ones. Glasses said she'd seen a few and mentioned a couple more. Typical show discussions. Gadget let out a quip about thinking a boy in an anime she'd watched recently was attractive. The major point was that she thought he was hot enough to drool over, and of course this sparked some major discussion. But it mostly turned the topic from innocent to sex. Glasses told us juicy rumors about some other girls we knew and the supposedly outlandish lewd acts they'd performed. Even Birthday, the girl who was grounded, had rumors that she had been slutting up the place and sleeping around the last year. Freckles took it upon herself to detail the exact going-ons between herself and another girl, including the various forms of hot lesbian sex, as she called it, they had regularly. Which was hot as fuck, trust me. Details about scissoring, different 69 positions, and even a couple hints on how to get fingers deeper into a girl than you can otherwise. I didn't even realize how useful it would be to ask a lesbian about girl-pleasing tips, but holy shit was it informative. I learned tips and tricks, and even a couple cheat codes from this crazy redhead. I even whisper a couple apologies to Raven when Freckles mentions things that I did wrong in how she described them. Raven just straight faces it though. I can only guess she's trying not to laugh. The entire conversation, the reaction from the girls in the car. Blondie was uncomfortable. Gadget and Glasses seemed rather interested, and Raven just seemed to ignore it. The entire thing gave me the worst boner. Gadget had been silent most of the time, but I watched as she seemed to be concentrating on something. Probably wanted to say something or had a neat question. Glasses dips conversation into her uneventful search for a decent boyfriend. She even makes the odd remark that the last boy she was with broke up with her after she offered to give him head, saying that it was disgusting and unladylike. This got a laugh out of Blondie. Raven and I mirrored a "what an idiot." Gadget is quiet, but she asks me a question. What is giving head? Oh, right, not a native English speaker. She's looking at me though. I try to explain it. I try the other words that mean the same thing approach first. Blowjob, blow, sucking off. I go through a handful of these and she doesn't seem to know any of them. Or she's pretending not to know them. I give up and just explain. It's when you suck a guy's dick. An interesting look of understanding crosses her face, and she kind of wrinkles up her nose when she realizes. Gadget had, the most expressive nose out of any girl I knew. It was a cute little nose, but she could turn it every which way and slide it around her face along with her cheeks and mouth. It suited her well because she always had her face showing, and she was always amazingly expressive with just that nose, her lips, and eyes. It wasn't really a wrinkled up disgust nose, it was something else. She asks another question. What What is it like? It was definitely a curious, wrinkled nose. She's still staring at me, though, as well as everyone else. This wasn't a "what does it feel like" question. That was a "what's sucking a guy like" question. I don't know what sucking off a guy is like. I can guess, but I wasn't going to. This could be one of those trap "have you ever had any gay experiences" questions, and I would never be let down if I tried to explain it to her. I just point out that I've never tried it, and the question gets passed off to Blondie, who is the next closest. She declines to answer because it's embarrassing, and thus Raven now holds the baton. Raven contemplates the best way to answer, and just ends up telling Gadget she should find a boy and try it herself, because explaining it wouldn't do it any justice. Gadget gives a little "oh," and follows up with a "I was just curious is all." It was a cute moment. If it wasn't for physics and my girlfriend, I would offer a hands-on lesson right here. But alas, my stars were not aligned because I am a taken man. And then Glasses realigns my stars. She peeked up from the front. She can show you. That is her boyfriend after all. This is followed by hooting and cheering from Blondie, and "ew" from Freckles, and hooting and cheering from me. Gadget is quiet. Raven is... well, she looks rather okay with it, surprisingly. She asks Gadget if she wants to see what it's like. Gadget doesn't really change colors when she blushes, but she did this time. Raven points out that Gadget would be the only one who can see from where I was sitting. The poor girl brushes even harder. "You mean, like, lick him?" She doesn't seem unwilling, just apprehensive. I'm worried this is getting into shitstorm territory, so I'm getting ready to stop it at the first sign of trouble. But Raven seems to have already decided. Her voice is soft. "No. Watch me." Then her voice firms up. We don't fool around with other people. I imagine a tone of hurt in that last statement. It's amazing how a seed of doubt can make a single statement sound so different. But who am I kidding? She just agreed to give me a blowjob in the back of the car with another girl watching. Life was good. Gadget stares at us for a second. Eye contact with me. Eye contact with Raven. Eye contact with me. Then she gives a little curt nod. The go ahead. Raven slides her hand down to my crotch and squeezes. I've been so hard. She doesn't pull my pants down, however. She goes for the zipper, then the little hole in my boxers. A little bit of fiddling and my raging boner is free for the world to see. The world being Gadget, because Blondie was trying to look back but was at the wrong angle, and we were behind a row of seats mostly, so the front row was blocked. Gadget isn't wide-eyed, but she's staring. Freckles makes some comment about, "Thank God they're behind a chair or I'd vomit." Glasses makes a sad comment about wanting to watch, but mostly the reaction I'm looking at is Gadget. She's got her breath caught in her throat, and her eyes haven't left my crotch. Raven leans over, looks up to make sure our quiet onlooker is watching, and just engulfs me whole. I could explain every little detail of how amazing it felt, or what she looked like while doing it, but aside from the sensations, I wasn't paying attention to Raven. I was watching Gadget. Her eyes were flickering between Raven's lips and my eyes, back and forth. Then Raven dropped her head and did her little trick, nestled the head of my dick against the back of her throat and swallowed. Now, I've not had many blowjobs from other women, very few actually, but Raven had an ultimate talent for giving head. When you swallow, it kind of contracts your entire mouth and tongue in unison, and pulls you right into the throat. The sensation is like fucking a smaller, tighter, and hotter mouth inside of the first one, made even better every time she consecutively swallowed. We're talking masterful, high-level blowjob talent here, and I was staring into Gadget's eyes the entire time. I even leaned my head back a little bit when Raven swallowed, but I maintained eye contact. I didn't last very long at all. I'm no match for Raven. Eventually, she gives a couple more bobs of her head and I get off into her mouth. The worst part and best part is that I'm staring into Gadget's hazel eyes the entire time, and she's staring back. Raven gives a bit more sucking, and then pulls her head away and wipes her mouth off with her arm. It was amazing, but so awful at the same time. Because for the first time in 2 years, I've had an orgasm while thinking about another girl. She could tell. I felt like a disloyal creep, but it was still amazing. But I was steps away from being a cheating bastard in my mind. But it was fucking amazing. Gadget doesn't say a word. She just breaks eye contact and looks down at my flaccid penis. She just averts her eyes, turns to look out the window, pulls her headphones up, and turns her music full volume. I can tell what she's listening to. It's happy hardcore. It was this song. Fitting.